Hey guys, and welcome again to week 1 of the Momtrepreneur Mastery class. This week we are talking about the internal systems. What is all inside? What's up here? And how we're going to help change a few things to work to our benefit. And today's lesson is lesson 5. And we're going to talk about the 4 or 5 agreements. So I'm not sure if you have heard of the book, The 4 Agreements, or if you've read it. Hopefully you have. If not, run as quick as you can and go grab that. But the book, The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, is one of the most amazing books that I have read in my life that has given me a paradigm shift that I cherish so much and that I take with me every single day of my life. And he later came out with another book called The 5th Agreement. So we're going to also include that. But those first 4 agreements are what is truly, truly, truly most powerful and what we're going to talk about today. So again, by far one of the most powerful books, and I implore you to read it if you haven't already. If you have, this is going to be a bit of a refresh for you, and that is okay, because it's really, really important to remember these type of things. And sometimes I'll pick up a book again just to refresh my memory. But it is such a powerful book, in fact, that it has inherently become one of my most major internal systems. And not only in life, but in business as well. And so I felt like it would be wrong not to share it with you guys here. So that's what we're doing today. And if you haven't read it, pull a chair in real close, because you need to listen to these 4 agreements. So what are the 4 agreements? The 4 agreements are an extremely, extremely powerful code of ethics that, when followed, can very quickly transform your life into a new experience of freedom and true happiness. And I do not say that lightly, because I want to tell you how freeing it is to understand, not just understand these, but to be able to think about your thought processes whenever situations arise, whenever these 4 agreements can be implied. So let's start with that first agreement. The first agreement is to be impeccable with your word. Speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. And when they say only what you mean, think about, your spouse or your significant other or a family member, and think of a time when you had like a really, really heated conversation and you said words to them that in the moment, in the heat of the moment, you just wanted to hurt them and just sort of get that jab in, but you really didn't mean. You were just saying it out of anger. This is one way that this first agreement is so important. Say only what you mean. This is another reason why this first agreement is so important. Avoid using the spoken word to speak against yourself or gossip about others. Now, we all know that gossip is horrible. It is hurtful. It is harmful not only to the people that we speak about, but to us as well. And even more so, we speak like that about ourselves, to ourselves sometimes too, and we need to avoid that at all costs. So this is very, very important. Be impeccable with your word, including your word against yourself. Use the power of your word only in the direction of truth and in love. There's a quote by, I believe, Eleanor Roosevelt that says, "Great minds discuss ideas, average minds discuss events, and small minds discuss people." And it is so true. Do not be a small-minded person that only talks about people. Let's share ideas. Let's help each other grow. Let's build. But be super impeccable with your word. That is the first agreement. The second agreement is don't take anything personally. And I have to tell you, this one agreement alone has changed my life. I was a very sensitive person, and it was very hard for me to put myself out there on social media because of what people say. And when I read this book, this one agreement changed everything for me. because I no longer take things personally when people speak to me or at me or in terms of me. Nothing what others do or say is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality. And when you are immune to the options and actions of others, the opinions, not options. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you will no longer be the victim of suffering. Now let that sink in for a minute. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, when you know how people are, when you know the things people say, when you understand this second agreement and you understand not to take things personally, you are no longer the victim. And that is the most freeing thing you can do for yourself. When you look at an example of maybe hearing somebody say something bad about you, I believe there's an example in the book of if you're at a party and you hear somebody saying something behind your back, like, oh, why is she here? She's so boring. You are not boring. This is a projection of their own reality. You are a boring person to them, maybe, but not to everybody. And you cannot take that personally. It is okay. You are not a person for everybody, and everybody is not a person for you. And it is really, really important to understand that. So that way you can free yourself of the chains of people's judgments. And if you know, being on social media, that is a really, really real thing that you have to deal with. So the second agreement, don't take anything personally. The third agreement, this is another really big one, is don't make assumptions. So often we assume what people are thinking, what people are saying, and that hurts us more than what is actually being said or felt. So find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings or drama. Now, don't we all wish we learned this in high school, right? It's actually one of the 3 things that I always say I wish I learned in high school was the 4 agreements, financial literacy, and mindfulness. So again, communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings and drama. And the last thing is, with just this one agreement, you can truly transform your life by not making assumptions of what other people think, say, or do. All right, so that's the third agreement. The fourth agreement is always do your best. Now, your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy versus when you are sick. It will be different when you have a 5-month-old compared to when you have a 6-year-old, or when you have 1 child versus 2 or 3 or 4. It is going to be different from time to time. Under any circumstance, though, simply do your best and you will avoid self-judgment, self-abuse, and regret. And to share with you a story about this one agreement in particular, I was in college and I did competitive cheer from the time I was, I think, in 4th grade all the way up to high school. And so in college, I thought, I'm going to join the college cheerleading team. I'm going to try out. So the week of tryouts, they have tryout sessions where you learn the choreography and cheers and all of that. And then you go and you actually try out the last day. And the first day I showed up, I realized how low on the totem pole I was. Like embarrassingly low compared to most of these girls. What I did not realize was that the college cheer team where I went was not a cheer team that I was used to. It was more of a dance team. And so these girls were doing more of dance moves than I had ever done or was accustomed to. And so I knew, like, this is not going to work in my favor. But I told myself, I'm just going to do my best. I'm going to go through with it. I'm going to try out, because the last thing I want to do is regret not doing it. And I'll tell you, that was the best decision I ever made in my life, because I went through with it. I did not make the team, and I was okay with that. Just the simple fact that I showed up and I did my best proved more to me than anything else. And that's all you can do, especially as a mom and an entrepreneur. Always do your best. And sometimes your best is going to differ from day to day and moment to moment, and that's okay. Just always do your best. Now, Don Miguel Ruiz, again, he added a 5th agreement later, and that 5th agreement was, be skeptical, but learn to listen. Now, this one took me a while to sort of warm up to, but this one agreement goes back to our idea of limiting beliefs. This goes back to our idea of paradigms that we learned when we were little that we carry with us that may not have validity in our adult lives, that we need to shift. So don't believe yourself or anybody else. Use the power of doubt to question everything you hear. Is this really the truth? Listen to the intent behind the words and you will understand the real message. And this, my friends, is how we can change our paradigms, by being skeptical, but learning to listen. And it's really, really important. So again, these are the 5 agreements. And following the 5 agreements daily requires discipline and the skill of metacognition. You need to think about your thoughts as the days progress. It is also helpful to be proactive in your approach to them. So our assignment for today is to go through each agreement and think of situations in your past that you could have applied it and how it might have changed the outcome. And secondly, you want to look at each agreement and think of ways that you can implement it in the future. It is time to start living by the 5 agreements. Every single time situations come up in my life, you know, I have 2 sisters, and if you know sisters, you can get pretty gossipy at times, especially about other family members and things like that. And one of the things over the last few years is I've made it a point to always be impeccable with my word and not use my word against other people. So when I'm in a text message conversation with my sisters, there have been actual times where my 2 sisters are talking and I go to text, you know, about that person, and I think agreement number 1, or I'll just think 4 agreements, the 4 agreements, delete, 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 and I will delete it, because that is how important it is to practice these agreements every single day. You need to have integrity and be true to yourself. Again, this goes hand in hand with everything we've talked about, being positive, vibrating on a higher level. By practicing the 4 agreements, you are aligning yourself with that exact idea. So I hope you guys enjoyed this lesson. I know it's a quick one, but this is lesson 5. And as soon as you're done with this lesson, go ahead and head on over to lesson number 6. Thank you all.